that was a great panel discussion, and I thank you all, and this has been an extraordinary 2 days. I am going to jump into my presentation really quickly with a couple of quick thoughts. I'm a medical educator. That's what I've done all of my life. I'm a physician with a background in molecular medicine, a geneticist by training, but a medical educator by profession. Done this for a very long time. Started as did a fellowship in med, started as a faculty member, USM, got brought into the Caribbean medical school system, which I thought would be a great time to do a little maternity leave thing. Thought I'll do it for a year, stayed for 12, and have been doing that, as a full-time job now. The one thing that was interesting for me to note is I've always been embarrassed about being a physician and yet being interested in business. There was always a dichotomy of thought there. I thought, the way I grew up, physicians were only supposed to be, for the greater good. That was the purpose. Until I went through medical school education and became a part of the educator group and realized that I needed to be able to provide input to the administration. So a few years ago, I bought into my company. So I am a shareholder and a medical administrator with a group called the International Education Management Resources. And this meeting, again, was more of a chance meeting, just like Jeffrey said. It was somebody gave me a call, and I said, sure, I'll attend, because it would give me an opportunity to meet entrepreneurs. And that's really what I'm here for, to be able to get a chance to meet educational entrepreneurs, because I had not chanced into that group of people in the past. I really hadn't. All my meetings, this has been different than anything else I've ever attended. All my meetings have always been pretty hardcore medical education. Morning to night of just workshops and working through things and making policy decisions and affecting and sending feedback to the American Association of Medical Colleges, through IMC and so on, and trying to change the medical education offerings and platforms. And when somebody asked me yesterday morning, said, what do you think about the meeting? And I said, well, it's very ideas rich, but content poor. I'll be honest with you, that's what I said. And let me tell you, I couldn't have been more wrong. I've been just extraordinarily wrong. So it has been an amazing meeting. I have a chance here to meet educators with a great entrepreneurial spirit. And what is unique here is a fierce motivation to support change. So with much ado, let me talk about what I'm supposed to be talking about today. Two things really, and again, my presentation and my approach to my presentation has changed every half of a day since I arrived, because now I'm almost not sure what to talk about. But I'll tell you what I have here. I'll just kind of go through it. I'll break up my presentation into two. One, I'm going to talk about the medical education pathway, sharing with you the opportunities that your students may have access to if medical education is what they want to get to. The second part, I'm going to share with you my company and what we do. Even though we are not a not-for-profit, full disclosure, we're not a not-for-profit, but we function very much like a not-for-profit. So I want to talk about the pathways, to give you an overview of what are the pathways to practice medicine with a US medical license in the United States. I want to talk about two distinct pathways, one for US students, one for all students. When I say all students, this pathway is also available to US students. I want to talk about higher education institutions and what's the, what do they need, what are the requirements. And then I want to talk about IMR. IMR clients, resources. Now the International Education Management Resources works with a number of different clients, and I'll kind of talk about those too. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why it's going back. So the American medical graduate, it's a whole list, long list of requirements. I'm going to this is the pathway for medical education for students in the United States. Students complete, I'm sorry, my presentation keeps running forward. So students can complete a pre-med program, a full bachelor's degree, go into medical school, get accepted into medical school, take the US medical licensing exams, step 1, do 2 years of clinical clerkships, which is actually in-hospital work, take their US medical licenses exams, step 2, apply for a medical residency, get a medical residency, do 3 to 5 years of a residency program. During a residency program, they write their step 3, US medical licensing step 3, and then they may apply for a fellowship and they get board certified and they get a full license. That's the pathway. It's a long pathway, but that's available to US students. International medical graduates. International medical graduates are people that do the Doctors of Medicine program abroad. Same criteria. The advantage therein is, the advantage therein is that international medical schools would allow students to probably, some of them may allow them to go through a high school to medical school program, which is you could combine all the pre-med into the MD program to actually go through the entire program. It's still all legit, it still goes through, you still require to be credited by the World Directory of Medical Schools. You still need to be recognized by the ECFMG. You still need to do all of the US medical licensing exams. And there is a visa requirement if the student is not a US student. Now, the international medical graduate education is open to all students. It's not just for foreign students. So which means that students going through the US K through 12 program or in universities can apply for these medical schools abroad. Now, for the longest time, it was mainly the Canadians and the foreign students that were utilizing this pathway to US licensing. But I wanted to share the fact that it's open to US students and it's accessible, it's cost effective, it is an opportunity, it's a great opportunity to become physicians in the US for students, again, based on their ability and their interest in the K through 12 program. It requires a number of steps. Again, it's a very complex grid, and I'm going to let you look at the presentation later, but it's a pretty complex grid, and it talks about number of steps which the school really has to go through with the student. So that's, again, details, and I'm going to get to why I'm getting to these details. Again, exhaustive program, requires certifications, require US clinical experience, requires that a residency application process is gone through, which is exactly the same as US medical students. So once the program is complete, everybody converges into the same residency match application. And that makes United States unique from other countries that you see around the world. United States is one of the only countries that allows students and physicians from anywhere in the world to apply with their graduates for the same residency slots. After that residency, they get their medical licenses to practice, unrestricted licenses in the United States. The advantage of the US medical license is you can pretty much take it anywhere and practice in any part of the world. And so you can hop and go to Canada, you can go to Australia, you can really practice anywhere in the world, which, by the way, is not possible by any other medical license from any other country. And that's why the interest. So who are these people that match into residency programs? I know we're talking about foreign programs and so on. I want to talk to you about why this is relevant to you as US educators mainly. Look at the applicants in the NRMP residency match. This is a program where you're matching into residency programs towards a license. 1/3 of all applicants trained abroad. 1/3 of all of them, of which non-US citizens were a large group, but there's a very large chunk of US citizens and who actually went and graduated out of medical schools abroad. Of these students that are coming from abroad, where are they coming from? And they come mainly from, you know, 1/5 of them are trained. Of course, there's a large chunk of students that come straight from India. That's the largest group. But there's also a very large group that comes from the Caribbean. And that's the school that I'm going to be talking about. That's the kind of education we've been focusing on for the longest time. So what does IMR do, and why am I speaking about it here? Well, I'm talking about it here for you to be able to see if there are any synergies in which you, with all your extensive understanding of learning and education and empowerment, kind of can come and assist and collaborate. Because let me tell you, as I sit all day today listening about sensitivity and about empowerment and about training of students, do you realize that we've spent 1 full year trying to train our physicians to be on things like eye contact when you examine a patient. Don't rip their gowns when you examine them. When they talk to you about their dead mother, you know, pause and say, I'm sorry to hear that. That's the kind of sensitivity training, that is the level of sensitivity training we are talking about. Nothing as extensive as what you're talking about, because this has been an eye-opener for me, everything that I've heard all day today and yesterday. What do? We are engaged in managing offshore medical schools. We follow a US-based curriculum. We encourage students from the United States, Canada, and of course some other countries to apply and go offshore to medical schools. Why do we want to do this? Because the system for medical schools in the United States is saturated. There isn't enough space. There is a physician requirement that is not going to be satisfied by US. We're looking for diamonds in the rough for people who may not have the resources to pay for medical school in the United States, who may have a bad grade here or there, which need to be able to go to a medical school and make great physicians. So that's where we're looking for. So we are doing a whole bunch of things. We're looking at we've invested in the whole global education market, but we're really a third-party provider. So we provide a lot of white label products to institutions that may require our assistance. So who are these institutions? So what IMR does is, and this part of I'm not really telling you about just IMR, I'm just giving it as an example of a number of agencies that are out there wherein your expertise may be able to contribute to all the apps that you're talking about, all the language issues, and if I may, Linda, go back to you. We have students applying to us from English-speaking African countries who believe they speak English, but they don't. The accents are so heavy that that is a place where we would definitely be able to utilize and get some assistance. Established medical schools where we actually offer resources that can expand their structure. Anybody that is initiating a new project that doesn't really have the resources to bring in a whole group of people to be able to do so. For new startup in educational institutions in the healthcare setting, where we would provide support, and we provide a lot of human capital resources for these individuals and these groups. So who is IMR clients? Now, obviously, we have, as I said, we offer a lot of white label products. A number of our clients do not wish to be identified. So I'm going to talk about the clients that we share ownership with, who are a part of us, and so in a way we kind of also are involved in ownership and partnering with. One of them is American University of Integrative Sciences in Barbados. If you'd like to, it's a very simple website, auis.edu, Alpha Uniform Indigo Sierra. You want to check it out? What it does is offers a 5.5-year program which allows highly competent, motivated high school students to actually begin their journey to medical school and actually graduate by shaving a year or two, just if they are focused and on the right track. This, so how it works for offshore medical schools is the school is chartered on the island of Barbados, but students actually go through their entire clinical training in the United States. So all students have to do is do some basic science coursework outside the country in a beautiful scenic location, live out on the beach, study there, and come back and do their entire clinical training in the United States. They're also doing all their US medical licensing exams while they're doing that training. So again, it's pretty fast. Now, AUIS Barbados also offers a full bachelor's program, a bachelor's in medical sciences program, in which also offers a number of great scholarships, especially for students who are in need and who are actually shaves off 50% tuition rebate for students from CARICOM countries or host countries. So there's a lot of incentives, a lot of options available for students out there. Another of IMR clients is IMGC Prep. Now, one of the US medical licensing exams are touted to be one of the toughest exams on the planet. They're very, very hard as compared to all the licensing exams in the rest of the world. So what it does is IMR, through IMGC Prep, provides a lot of clinical resources to students, not only, and what they do it in the form of everything that I've talked about, I've heard today being talked about, by simulation, by provision of a progressive system-based curriculum, through we'll just get to Carl in a bit, through provision of, oops, I think I'm doing something, through provision of a team-based learning, collaborative learning. We will be getting back to a full in-person teaching next semester in the fall after spending a whole year as hybrid education, which I'm rethinking, obviously, because of all this discussion. The last panel discussion talked about all the benefits of keeping online education. I also must thank a number of other speakers earlier. I know Phoenix and Syed, people who are trying to change the education, the regulations when it comes to educational industry. The other client for IMR is, again, we're also into software development. And so one of our big products or clients is clinical activity and rotation log. And what this is it is an innovative software platform that actually allows the entire student experience, clinical training experience, to be captured electronically. If I may kindly play the YouTube video. I'll let them explain it to you. I'm the medical educator, so I'll let some of the tech people explain to you what it is. But if there is somebody out there, and I'm here again to solicit input and collaboration. If there's anybody who can help us expand this, this would be amazing.
Handheld devices, cell phones, and tablets are becoming ever more powerful and useful, collecting an enormous amount of data and information. And now, medical students attending the American University of Integrative Sciences St. Martin will be on the cutting edge of that technology. As they perform their rounds, each will be equipped with a fully functioning tablet with a special app. That app, called CARL, or Clinical Activity and Rotation Log, is unique and powerful as it tracks each student's rotations, classes, patients, and procedures.
You have to look at the environment that we're working in. It wasn't that long ago that all of us didn't have a watch that allowed you to answer your phone like Dick Tracy, right? And every 6 months, our ability is doubling. The speed of our networks are doubling. And we're able to do things we couldn't do just a couple of years ago. CARL actually takes all of that into account and uses it to the advantage of not only the student and the preceptor, but the school itself. We have clinical deans now that will be able to actually, in real time, look at the SOAP notes that the student makes for each of the rounds that they do with their preceptor. They can then feed back to that student immediately whether they're making their SOAP notes correctly.
Schools here in the United States typically own their hospital and or have a formal teaching relationship with the hospital, so that their students rotate across the street. In the Caribbean basin, students go and spend 2 years studying in their basic science phase of their studies, and then for the clinical phase of their studies, where they are introduced to clinical medicine, they are assigned to hospitals and medical facilities spread throughout the United States. In the case of AUIS, we're in 30 states with 430 some odd facilities. Consequently, it's historically been very difficult to maintain control of that educational process, to ensure that the preceptor, who's the physician responsible to supervise the student's education during that phase of study, to ensure that they stayed true to the course curriculum for that rotation, to ensure that the student was getting all the information that that curriculum required of them. And then to, quite frankly, ensure that the student showed up at the right place on time and performed up to par.
We depended on the doctor, the preceptor's office, to send us evaluations. We depended on the student to send us evaluations. And it was a long process. So with the invention of CARL, it makes it all, we can get the information immediately. And that's great because we can figure out how the rotation's going and what's happening, and how, if the student is learning what we want them to learn in the rotation.
CARL allows for you to go in and in real time, when you're looking and reviewing charts as a student, when you're doing rounds with or without your preceptor, talking to your patient, it allows you to capture the information on your tablet at the time that you're standing there. Previously, you would walk around and you may write it on a notepad, you may commit it to memory, but then you, afterwards, sometimes hours afterwards, you would then sit down and create your SOAP notes from what you did remember. So this really allows them to take individualized prompted thought and then at the end, put it all into a cohesive whole.
So now, seeing our new product, how do you guys think this is going to benefit our students moving forward?
I mean, I think that having the opportunity to do this keeps us more connected to you guys, yep, to the administration, as well as if we need something from our preceptor, we have that ability to communicate what our concerns are and what our needs are.
This tool is going to help us. It'll help us map your performance, and preceptors can let us know if there's a weakness point that we need to work with you at. It's also going to help you prepare for your STEP exams. This information also helps with accrediting bodies because they're able to track this information, compile it together. You can apply for a residency program, email them all these documents, and they can track. And other students don't have access to this information.
No, that's awesome, because that's what our main concern is, to get a residency. So yeah, that definitely helps.
This will be on the tablet, so you'll have a tablet on while you're going through classes, so you'll have the benefit of being the first students that have this program, walking around in a classroom with a tablet that you can enter your information in.
It's a little longer than I anticipated, the video. Thank you.
CARL is unique.
This video was produced 3 or 4 years ago when we first launched CARL. Carl since then has undergone 4 versions. We are actually on version 5 that also plugs in an entire digital medical library. It plugs in AI. We use AI all the time. I mean, we use testing software that uses all the metacognitive functions required, like spacing, interleaving, things that we've talked about during this conference here during the day. We also use a fluid testing model that does not let students have to rely on one test to get better, and so on. Also tracks them all through residency and even into match. All I'm trying to say here is we've talked about different programs, different aspects. I wanted to throw in medical education in there as well. Simply because, I mean, I was asked by GFEL if I wanted to be in the healthcare conference, and I said, really not, because this is all about education and about educators. And it's all about what we come together as innovative ideas to apply them into education. And it doesn't matter what you're educating, doesn't matter what you're teaching, it's about how you teach, and that's kind of key. In summary, so these are some of the clients. IMR services are available to folks, to any agency, any group, in a lot of different approaches. Now, a lot of this information is easily available on we have a very simplistic website called imr.services. You're welcome to check it out, and if you have any questions, or if you think you may be able to join our group in providing input or expanding our own horizons, please stop by and drop a card, and my team will get back to you, because what we are seeing here is a lot of cutting edge approaches. So what we do here is, what we offer institutions is market positioning, implementation planning, financial direction. Finance is really what our CEO and his core group really work on. And then everything else that goes with running a medical school, back office, bursar, financial offices, all of the US credentialing, compliance, government, island governments, any of those communications, international program supervision, locations. So if you had an interest in expanding your school program or whatever program you're doing into, say, one of the islands or on international locations, IMR would definitely be somebody who would be useful to you. Academic services, as I said, we have been using a lot of cutting edge technologies, and we have a lot of, in terms of medical education, what's out there, faculty training, development, learning programs, all based on, of course, compliance standards, educational materials, faculty, recruiting, US clinical skills, just how would you, simulation training, a fully sim lab. Again, a lot of white label access to all of our resources. So IT services, of course, big time. Thank you. I'm just going to take 2 more minutes. And physical plant and contract services. We also work with offering EB2 visas, EB5 visas for people and for developers, for investors who want to come in, and so on. So what is the opportunities? Why am I here? I'm here to, again, throw out an interest in IMR as again, an idea that may be open to educators from all walks, not just medical education, absolutely open to collaboration, especially in the teaching learning field. Any access to client groups, anybody who is interested in tech and so on, of course, any direct services. And if there's any interest in creating a pathway to medical school for students from your K through 12, your high school program, or even your university program, we'd be happy to. We do have active collaborations with a number of universities in the United States and Canada, and we would love to expand that to your school as well. Again, if you feel that we can contribute, we can work together, please stop by and say hello. Any questions, please?
Which goes through the same steps, step 1 IFORM, step 2 IFORM, and there are 59 countries which accept IFORM results because it's conducted through National Board of Medical Examiners in Philadelphia. So I don't know, are you just focused on students coming back to US to do their residency and practice? What if they don't want to practice?
And that's a great question, Dr. Shukla. By the way, I enjoyed your session immensely. That's a great question. AUIS and a lot of our clients that we've known, until 5 years ago, been focused on US and Canadian students who want to come back. Their primary objective is to come and practice in the US and Canada. We have, in the past 2 years, received an enormous interest from students from other parts of the world. And we have begun to explore a lot of students from Europe, from Africa, interest in where else and certifications. And that was one of the reasons of our trip back to India. Back to India to work with the agencies of different countries where our students want to return back to. So mainly Nigeria, we currently have students in our pre-medical sciences program, not yet in our MD program, but we have students right now currently from Korea, and I'm not saying students American Korean, I'm saying from Korea, from Japan, from Swaziland, from Ghana, from a number of international locations, and we are beginning to understand the credentialing process for these students to go back. So do we know everything that you're talking about? Not as yet, and that's why we are here, to seek and get some assistance from educators from different countries and probably help us out. Mm-hmm.
Does it have the functionality of having each clerkship individually? You do your soap notes differently on each clerkships. Mm-hmm. Does it differentiate that, or is it just one simple soap notes?
The clinical activity and rotation log, or CAL, is a very robust machine. It is, again, can be adapted to anything, can be adapted to clinical simulations, to really anything. But in this case, the medical school version, which is the one that we've put together for medical schools, it comes with a curriculum. So medical schools and any healthcare professions are able to work it the way they want to. So you could actually plug in a curriculum. Say, for example, you want to follow the ACOG OBGYN curriculum. And you say, these are the requirements for undergraduates for medical school. It can actually, you can actually place all those requirements, including the requirements for SOAP notes and other experiences. Number, for example, you want them to do 8 vaginal deliveries and you want them to do so many breech. You can actually plug it all in and it will go through a checkbox. And not only for medical school, actually, we offer, or our interest is in simulations as well. So you can actually go through a counting process. You can actually count through, and our students use it very early on because the way a progressive medical school now functions is your clinical experience starts day 1 of medical school. You don't wait to see patients. So when Jeffrey was talking about communication, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to speak to him, because communication is a huge deal of our initial program. So we've just added business of medicine courses, leadership courses, courses in law and society, because we want to develop a broad-based, students who have a broader perspective on life. And so can call be personalized? Absolutely, big time. And it can also be applied to go through the local country credentialing process. If there are no more questions, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for attending.